Another tough loss for the Bulls. No other way to go about it, guys. Another game where they remained competitive throughout, although the Jazz did take a pretty big lead in the third, but the Bulls were able to bring it back down as far as within 6 for a period of time in the fourth. It's getting to be hard to do these post-game videos when the Bulls especially are playing so well against these top teams in the league, but just come up short. And we've seen that multiple times throughout the season. We saw it against the Lakers, the Clippers, that deadly game against the Blazers, the Nuggets twice, the last game against the Suns, and then yet again tonight against the Jazz. Just brutal. I mean, you factor in all of the close losses that the Bulls have had so far this season and what their record could have been like, even if they had only won half of the games that have been close throughout the year that actually went in the Bulls' favor. You're talking about a team that could be 5th in the East right now just based on how close the standings are between seeds 4 through 12. But things just haven't gone the Bulls' way down the stretch, and the Bulls are now looking at a 6-game losing streak. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bull Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Before I get into the post-game video, guys, really quick, if you caught my video from earlier today, I mentioned that I have partnered with a new app called Viget. That is a gamified sports social media app that allows you to bet on sports with fake money and win real prizes. And then I realized I didn't mention the link to the app, that it was in the description of that video, as some of you were wondering, how do you go about accessing it? Anyway, I'll leave it linked to the description in this video as well, and future videos if you're interested in downloading the free app. And you can use my referral code BULLCENTRAL to get some bonus tokens. Anyway, back to this game though. Now, I do want to mention something that has kind of been bothering me for a while now, and I'm normally not one to complain about officiating. I think in all the videos that I've made since starting this channel, I have yet to complain about officiating unless it was, say, an isolated call. Kind of like when they called a jump ball on Zach Lavine that should have been a foul, which led to that Damian Lillard buzzer-beating, game-winning 3 against the Bulls, and it even still pains me to this day thinking about that game when the Bulls were up by 5 with 10 seconds left to go. But be that as it may, the NBA needs to figure out this problem with the poor officiating this season. I mean, I can't tell you how many times bad calls have gone against the Bulls, or lack of calls for that matter. In this game alone, there were multiple times where players were driving to the basket, getting hammered, and it was a no call. Now listen, normally I don't have a problem with that as long as it gets called equally on the other end. I'm all for just letting the players play. But more often than not, especially in the last week or so, we've seen the Bulls getting hammered, particularly Zach Lavine, and the refs choking on the whistle while they are incredibly quick to call it on the other end for the same type of play. They have had multiple flagrants called on the Bulls this season, which a lot of them shouldn't have been called flagrants, while the Bulls have been fouled in similar fashion, and it's deemed a common foul. Now, I'm not going to say the Bulls have the record that they do because of the refs, or even that they lost this game tonight because of the refs, because the Bulls as a team have to find a way to win these games, even when the calls aren't going their way. That's a part of basketball. Sometimes you get the calls and sometimes you don't. But more recently, in the past week or so, I feel like the Bulls are falling more on the side of not getting the calls in their favor, and it's incredibly frustrating to watch as a fan. Now, here's the thing about this game, because the Bulls actually played very well tonight, considering they were playing the best team in the league on the road, and the Jazz were fully healthy tonight. Now, in the third quarter, the Bulls let things slip a bit on defense. Their shots also weren't falling. The Jazz took a big lead by as many as 17 points at one point. And I'll be honest, I had kind of written the game off, as I figured it would likely be too hard to come back in a game like this against a team like the Jazz. But the second unit came out incredibly strong in the fourth quarter, which was fueled by Thaddeus, who actually was the only starter in that initial fourth quarter lineup. And the Bulls made some incredible plays. They moved the ball well, they hustled on defense, and found themselves back in the game by cutting it down to 6 points. But the problem was Billy Donovan decided to ride with the guys who were playing well and brought the Bulls back into the game for most of the fourth quarter, rather than bringing back the starters, most notably not bringing back Vucevic and Zach Lavine. Now, I've been watching basketball for a long time, and I'm not an expert by any means, and I know it's common for coaches across all levels, really, even in college or in high school basketball for that matter, to stick with the guys that are feeling it and playing well together to keep the momentum going. And I totally get that, and in most instances, I agree in that approach. But for this game, when the Bulls are able to go on a run and bring things back within reach, You don't stick with guys like Denzel Valentine or Daniel Tice over all-star players and Zach Lavine and Nikola Vucevic. Like I said, I get why Donovan did it, and it's fine maybe if he keeps them in a little bit longer than normal in the fourth quarter, but Lavine and Vuce hadn't entered the game up until when there was about a little over 4 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter. And even if the momentum is there, you bring in your all-stars to close out the game, especially when the Jazz scored after the Bulls cut it to 6, and then the Jazz got another defensive stop. They scored again, and suddenly the lead was back to double digits. That just can't happen. Again, I'm not a coach. Obviously, Billy Donovan knows the game way better than I do. I just think in those instances, you see guys bring your team back, bring the closers into the game, and see if they can eke out a win. Because the second Lavine came into the game, he hit a couple of big shots to bring the Bulls within 5, and then Vucevic hit a big 3 with less than a minute to go, I believe, to cut the lead to 3 points. But again, by then, it was a little too late and the Bulls weren't able to close things out. Anyway, I'm not going to call out Billy Donovan because I feel like he gets a lot of heat from Bulls fans, especially recently. And I do think, him as a coach overall, he is a good coach. Just a little pet peeve of mine that I saw from tonight where I think he should have brought the starters in much sooner in the fourth quarter. And I just can't for the life of me understand why he continues to give Denzel Valentine so many minutes, even when his shots are falling, because he's just not the best player in those type of closing situations because of his low basketball IQ. But either way, it's a tough loss because, again, every game is so critical now as we approach the end of the season and pushing for the playoffs. But I think overall, the positives that I liked from this game was the team getting more and more used to each other, building that chemistry with the new players. With Zach Lavine back too, you could tell he looked a little more comfortable and played much better with Vucevic. He still didn't look fully quite like his old self just yet. He's still struggling to shoot from deep and hasn't been as quick as we're used to seeing with him driving to the basket, but overall it was a better game from him. 23 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists. It was good to see him back in the lineup after resting for a game. Vucevic, also another solid game for him. Not as good as we've seen from his first few games as a Bull. He struggled a little bit to find a shot, 16 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists. But how about Thaddeus Young tonight? The veteran in his 14th season, turning back the clock and looking like a young guy out there. He had a season high of 25 points on 11 for 17 shooting from the field to go along with 7 rebounds. He was plus 12 on the night in 33 minutes. Lauri Markkanen and Coby White, though, again, not the best nights for them coming off the bench. It just further is making it a tougher case for why these guys should be a part of the Bulls' future. I mean, if you had asked me this last season, I would have said Coby White and Lauri Markkanen are going to be integral parts, or integral pieces anyway, to the Bulls franchise going forward. And I can't even say that for either of them right now. Markkanen, only 5 points tonight and 2 rebounds. Coby White, 4 points and 3 assists. I'm sure getting bench hasn't bode well, for their overall confidence, but hoping that they can get out of this rut. Otherwise, it might be a challenging offseason for them and what their future holds with this organization. The rotation for the Bulls tonight was also pretty short. Only 9 men played all game. I was a little disappointed that Troy Brown Jr. didn't play, even Aminu. I would have loved to see, him get some minutes here and there. What's funny about tonight's game is that the Bulls had the lowest amount of turnovers committed all season, with only 6 turnovers for the whole game. Very much a positive sign, as that has been one of the Bulls' biggest issues all year. Last game they only had 9 turnovers, so hopefully we continue to see that trend going forward. But boy, what has been going on with the Bulls' 3-point shooting? Another very poor shooting night from deep, going 7 for 28 as a team. 25% from 3. I mean, I was getting used to seeing guys like Zach and Coby knocking down 5 threes a night on average. It seems like it was a long time ago when they both combined for that game where they had 17 threes. Really, ever since the All-Star break, the Bulls have not been able to find the rhythm in shooting from deep, and that's such a critical component in your offense in today's NBA. So I really hope the Bulls continue to work on that further in practice, as that can be the difference maker in them winning more games consistently. Anyway, it doesn't get easier for the Bulls, as we'll be taking on the Nets on Sunday in an earlier game, actually. However, the Bulls will be back in Chicago for that game before heading on another road trip. Of course, The Nets are also one of the best teams in the league, and even more deadly now after acquiring Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge to come off the bench. I'm going to go into that game with low expectations in the hopes that the Bulls at least make the game competitive, similar to how they were tonight, come out with energy and grit, be scrappy on defense, and also come out firing on offense, since the Nets are one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. I'll have a live group chat out for that game. As always, I'll be back also out with another video tomorrow as well. Be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I post daily Bulls content. Also be sure to check out the Viget app and use my referral code. Link is in the description. Thanks again for tuning in as always, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.